Welcome, everybody. It's a Too High podcast. I am Seth Galina alongside Diante Lee. We have a special guest today sitting in the lucky chair position. That is Stephen Ruiz from The Ringer. Steve, what's going on?
That was an electric intro. You could feel the energy.
But I want to, you know, when people put their headphones on and they listen to this, I wanted like an ASMR type of situation. I want people to like get really calm and relaxed when they listen to my voice.
What a call for yourself to say that you get to be the ASMR guy for the podcast.
I'm just gonna start licking my lips in the middle of while you guys are speaking, just to get to keep it, you know, mellow and stuff like that.
So this is the pod.
This is the pod.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, we plan on talking about quarterbacks and how to process information as a quarterback with you, who you believe we live in a post-processing quarterback world. Can you explain what that means?
I don't know if we're post-processing, but I think we got to a point, and I don't know when it happened, is probably the Josh Allen draft, where I think we started to overvalue it.
Mm-hmm.
And not just overvalue it, I think we have a hard time watching a college offense and not realizing that the quarterback isn't necessarily asked to be Drew Brees. Like, and Malik Willis that's the guy we're talking about here without talking about him. When I watch him, I'm not concerned about the processing issues that a lot of other people are.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I don't think that's fundamental to quarterback play and it's going to affect him at the next level. I just think he has enough talent, and we're at it in an era of football where talent can outweigh that stuff. Whereas maybe 10 years ago, when offenses weren't closely aligned with what's going on at the college level, I don't know if he could have. But now I think we're in a world where we shouldn't get hung up on those things, the process stuff. He'll learn, he'll adapt, give him the reps, and that stuff will come along eventually. I'm in a world when I'm watching quarterback prospects, I just want to see, do they have enough talent to play today? And I think, like, honestly, he's like the rawest quarterback in terms of like quarterbacking stuff. But honestly, I think if you play him week one, he would give you a better chance to win than any other quarterback in this class.
Okay. I feel like, in this conversation, we're probably trying to find a roundabout way of saying, how do we contextualize quarterbacks that run a majority of RPOs within their offense? So when you watch a guy like Willis, and it's not just particular to him, a lot of these quarterbacks now, we have to have these kind of things in consideration. How are you kind of projecting out with his skill? Is it just skill set based, or are you just kind of looking at particular traits in that? How do you kind of weed through some of this stuff? Because I think, over the last 5-6 years, I think a lot of mistakes have been made in evaluations on quarterbacks, trying to figure out just how much of their game translates from one level to the next, given the way that the college and the spread RPO game kind of works.
Yeah, I think for me, I get what you're saying. Like, I do think people overvalue certain traits, like arm strength, for instance. Right. But for me, it's not just that Willis has a crazy strong arm. For me, it's that he's like a very good thrower of the football.
Mm-hmm.
Like
he was surprisingly more accurate than I thought he would be when I put the tape on.
The man can throw a bubble screen. He throws the best bubble screen I've ever seen, like in stride every time. Which I think you could build an offense out of if he's just accurate.
I'll tell you which team runs the best bubble screens accurately. It's the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. And do they throw the ball over the middle of the field that much? Not really.
Not really. No. Yeah.
Like, especially the Fleur Rogers years. They stick to throwing the ball outside, running those out routes, running those weak side options, the slants, and then throwing those back shoulder fades and 9 balls. And it's like, and then Jalen Hurts, they don't throw the ball over the middle of the field, and it's like so I'm kind of coming around to some of the stuff you're saying, where it's like, you probably can make an offense out of this. Can you make an offense that is consistently every year? Can you make an offense to where you can come back in games? We always say that type of thing. Like, do you have the ability, if your quarterback hasn't developed the processing stuff to do that? That I don't know, but I think you can definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just like you said, like the college game and the NFL game is blending a bit together, and every year now it blends even more. I just wrote the article on like kind of the RPO evolution or revolution, and we saw the most throws beyond, I think, 3 yards on RPOs, meaning slants, meaning glance routes, meaning speed outs, like downfield RPO throws than we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. The most, I think the Steelers and the Dolphins had almost double. The 2021 Steelers and Dolphins had almost double each than the next highest team, which is like the 2020 Chiefs or something like that. So it's like we're seeing all these things, and that's what Willis, for example, does. And honestly, it's what all of them do. Right. College, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm torn because I want to believe in processing.
Right.
It's
your
more
thing.
It's
you're a Jake Fromm guy.
I'm a Jake Fromm guy. Yeah. So I want to believe in that stuff, but like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, it just I don't want to say it's easier to play in the NFL now. That's a dumb thing to say, but like honestly, like the kids are getting reps from the time they're 8 years old, 7-on-7, private coaching. The quarterback play is so good right now that even the quote unquote ones that aren't good are like still really good quarterbacks, and I think you can get offense out of them.
Yeah, and for me, I think with Willis specifically, I think the processing stuff will eventually come if he gets those reps. And my thing is that he has the talent to get those reps, to buy himself time. Whereas like Josh Rosen, who's like the antithesis of him, he didn't have that talent. He couldn't keep himself afloat for 2 years. He was basically a done deal in the NFL. I think Willis, you can craft something that brings him along. And the longer I've been doing this and watching film and like evaluating players, like when quarterbacks just play every year, they just get better. Like Kirk Cousins,
that's crazy, unbelievable.
It's not like crazy insight, but it will come along eventually. Like he'll get to a point. Like even like Josh Allen is getting to that point. Like I was gonna say, Kirk Cousins when he was in Washington, like he played like an idiot. Like he threw interceptions.
Yeah.
He didn't really go through his progressions like as he was supposed to. Like got through them in a hurry. But he got better and better and better. Same with Derek Carr. Like all these, you could point out countless examples. So I think that will come along. And I know people make a big deal about the sacks and the interceptions because the interceptions are ugly and the sacks are ugly with Willis. But one thing we can't really account for when we're just watching film is what he was in that offense, what his role was, and what the coaches needed him to be. And it was the best player on the field at all times. Just go make a play. A check down to some 2-star running back is not a better option than Malik Willis scrambling out of the pocket. A check down to a 2-star running back is not Malik Willis throwing into a tight window. Maybe he gets picked, but he was going for a touchdown. Like that's my thing. And that's one thing I don't think you can get with film. I think you have to get that in the interviews with him. Like, what was your mentality on this play when you watch like one of those ugly plays? And I mean, I'm not going to say I guarantee, but I believe that it was, I had to make a play. And that's the type of quarterback I want. I want a quarterback that's going to make a play. I don't want Sam Howell. I don't want Kenny Pickett if I'm drafting a quarterback in the first round.
So to me, like in hearing what Seth was saying and then hearing what you were just kind of explaining here, it's kind of leading me to a question that I think kind of ties some of the scheme stuff that we talk about with some of the player evaluation deals. Like, so basically what I'm interested in hearing from both of you guys is, are we in an era now where we're really not so concerned about what a quarterback's floor is? Like, obviously, now you're kind of seeing in the NFL level where if you shake a quarterback's hand in the Shanahan offense, you'll be a play caller or a head coach at some point. And if you're not running that type of scheme, it's very spread RPO based. And we kind of know these offenses to be able to raise the floor of a quarterback. So in our evaluation now, are we really just scouting for ceilings, or trying to figure out pathways? Like, what does this look like when this guy's maximized, and not so much like, oh, well, can we count on this guy to pick out every possible blitz that might be coming? Right. Like I used to think of that as a way to kind of raise the floor, right? When we think about the Brees, the Mannings, the Bradys, guys who can get you out of any bad scenario.
Right, but the raising the floor with the blitz thing is just being able to escape from a free rusher now, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean? So is that kind of where we're at in terms of evaluating QBs? Is we know that within the framework of the offense that you'll have answers more times than not. So now we can kind of hone in on what is your best good trait and how good can that good trait be?
I think that's a better way to put it rather than post-processing. I think it's a thing where
I love saying post-processing.
I know it's a great line. It's a great line. But that's what it is for me. Like, I don't care about your floor. I don't care if your floor is high if I'm drafting a quarterback in the first round. Maybe if I'm drafting like a backup quarterback on day 2 or day 3, I care what your floor is. But like if I'm taking a quarterback in the top 15, I don't give a shit.
Right.
I don't want Kirk Cousins.
Right.
I just keep shitting on all these quarterbacks that I don't want. I only want Justin Herbert.
Right.
I wish. I got distracted there by Austin taking his laptop away from us.
What a pro.
Man, now I don't remember what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, so Justin Fields last year. I think there was like these issues with Justin Fields, like what he does and what he does not do in that offense. And you were actually one of the people, Steve, that like came up pretty hard against this idea of like, well, he doesn't do this, therefore he can't do that.
Right.
But it's like, well, if he's not asked to do that in the offense, and you brought this up earlier, like we have to evaluate based on literally that. Like, what are you asked to do? And I always bring this up all the time, like when I was coaching college football, and it was like we had a protection. We slid to the field. And it's like, so he didn't have, our quarterback didn't have to do anything in terms of that. He
You're
just
not IDing anything.
Not IDing the mic. He's just like, okay, so like, and obviously the Ohio State offense is a little more complicated than that, but at the same time, like, if I was going to evaluate the quarterback in an offense, I would have to know that. I have to be like, hey, it's okay that he's not doing this stuff because he's not asked to do it.
Right.
But the things you can evaluate, and that's kind of what I've been focused on, and maybe I'm overreacting to the Josh Allen hitting and Herbert hitting and me missing on both. The thing that you can evaluate is the arm talent stuff, and the throwing ability, and the ability to escape. And when you watch Malik Willis, like it's him, a large gap, and then everyone else for me. Like I think Ritter is very talented. I think he has a strong enough arm. I would say it's like an 8 out of 10 arm, 8 out of 5. But the throws don't get to where they're supposed to go as often as they do with Malik Willis. And if we're doing like the raw quarterback thing, I would rather have a raw quarterback who, because all these quarterbacks are going to be raw when they go in the NFL. They came from college offenses, they're going to an NFL offense. I'd rather have the good, like the talented guy.
Right.
That's the raw quarterback I want, not a guy that can read out stick when he's 22.
Right. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at as well. I think that now, the times that I do watch quarterbacks, I'm more focused on, like you were saying, the arm talent thing, and then just like the navigation of the pocket more times than not. Because, you know, like Seth was saying, these defenses now have just become so sophisticated at generating unblocked pressure or generating pressure in a way that's going to force you off platform, even if they can't make contact with you. You know, like, so when I think about a guy like a Joe Burrow, right? Like, for as skeptical as I was of his arm talent, like, you can't deny his ability to maneuver the pocket, his escapability, and then being able to create out of structure. So when you look at something like that, to your point of like, I just want to scout your best traits and see how far you can go with those traits, you can see why people were, you know, so, you know, bullish on him. And then you see, obviously, in the results when he's healthy, they get to the Super Bowl this past year. So is there anybody, I guess what I want to ask, is there anybody outside of Willis that you're looking at that really kind of piques your interest in terms of ceilings?
I just want to add in, because I think we had talked about this probably the middle of the season about Tua, where it's like, so the issue with Tua is like, what is his A+ trait?
Right.
And we were like, well, it was supposed to be processing.
Right.
But then it's like, well, that's the hardest thing to figure out from college to the NFL.
Right.
And if so, you don't have that A+ trait. He's like, obviously he's not like inaccurate, but he's not Joe Burrow.
Right.
He's not Herbert in terms of arm strength. So it's like, well then, you know, so it's like a guy like Pickett.
Right.
Like, what is your A+ trait that I want to take in the first round and build something around?
It's not even just Pickett. What's your A+ trait with Ritter? Is my
Same
question.
with Matt Corral as well.
Like all of these guys. And
I think I'd probably put his arm at like 8.5, but yeah.
Who, Pickett?
No, Ritter's arm. I like it.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Ritter, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say he's probably like a strong B+
Yeah.
type of arm talent.
Yeah. And I think with the Burrow thing, Burrow's like a different case because the processing stuff, the accuracy stuff, like the quarterback stuff, traditional quarterback stuff, jumped off the screen with him. Like
Right.
it wasn't
But
it wasn't an absence.
Right.
Like,
I think like
exactly.
accuracy and like processing and decision making tend to go hand in hand. Like, it's always tough to separate those two
Right.
things specifically.
True.
But if you're just talking about accuracy, it was A+. Right. That was his
Yeah.
trait. So it's like that's enough.
Yeah. But Ritter's the only other quarterback I would take in the first round. I watched Pickett. I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see it at all.
No.
I don't know how you can draft him in the first round and get a fan base excited about him. Like every fan base gets excited when they draft
About their quarterback, yeah.
But the first year they see him, and I don't know, because Dolphins fans were like willing to die for Tua, who is one of the most unwatchable quarterbacks. Like, not from like, he's not bad, but just aesthetically, it's hard to
Yes,
watch that
yeah.
offense. And that's my thing with him. Like, to me, Pickett, I think, could be a great rookie contract quarterback. But then 4 years down the line, you're dealing with the Baker Mayfield situation where, like, what do we do with this guy? We can't really move on because he's had some success. We can't pay him a bunch of money or we're screwed. and then you're just back to where you were when you drafted him 4 years ago. And maybe like some teams, that's all they need. Like even like the Colts, I think they could use a 4-year quarterback.
But even this is always the issue is like, okay, like we're living in a world, we're fantasizing about a world where Kenny Pickett can start right now, but that's not guaranteed either, right? So now all of a sudden you have this guy who can't. You're waiting for to develop, and he's obviously an older prospect, and you're like, well, if that never happens, then that's another wasted pick. I mean, we are going to have wasted picks there at quarterback. We know that, but like that. This is always the issue of like pro readiness versus potential, and it's like, there's the two sides of the coin with like pro readiness. Is like, pro readiness is not a bad thing per se. If I say like Aiden Hutchinson's the most pro ready, prospect or like edge prospect in the draft, that doesn't mean he can't like get better, or it doesn't mean like that's doesn't mean like the ceiling is still low, is lower than someone like a Thibodeau or whatever. But then the other side of the coin is like, what does pro ready mean, especially at quarterback position? Because all it means to me is, and why I'll have like Pickett probably higher than you is because the offense that they ran for years at
it's the
Pitt,
system, it's not the player.
It's the system, right? It's because I'm like, oh well, look at all these cool concepts they're running, and he's throwing pretty good. And my thing with Pickett was the past 2 seasons, and like the off season before he became a Heisman Trophy finalist, I probably should have won the Heisman to tell you the truth. I was like, hey, watch out for Kenny Pickett, because if they fix anything, whether it's the offensive line or the system, or he just gets a tick better now playing in his 19th year college football, like, because that offense was super difficult. So I was like, what would happen if you put him in Ole Miss's offense, if you put him in Liberty's offense, you put him in North Carolina's offense, which is like, those are all the quarterbacks we're seeing that are coming out this year. It might be pretty good. And I think really what happened was something just kind of clicked in his
it was him being
in his late 20s.
He was 3 years older than everyone he was playing against.
Exactly. So it finally clicks, and like the offense. I mean, I know they brought in Brendan Marion, and they probably changed the offense a little bit, but like at the end of the day, he was older, and it clicked, and now you have a Heisman Trophy candidate, where the issue is like the comparison to Burrow is always going to be there, but like.
So
I don't know.
I have a question I want to swing to you, Steven. Having this conversation, so in the conversation of talking about guys' ceilings and special traits or something like that, and I'm not going to ask you to slam any of the prospects right now, but just for you as an evaluator, what are deal breakers in terms of traits?
Steve Ruiz, evaluator.
I am an evaluator. Finally, someone gives
what kind of deal breakers or non-starters, are you looking at in terms of the traits that you're evaluating?
The guys that struggle in the pocket and don't have the plan B, like a Malik Willis or like a scrambler, like to get out of it, like a Sam Howell, for instance, who takes a lot of sacks, like that's a deal breaker for me. The first time I see you panic in the pocket and you don't have the ability to get outside of it, I don't know how that works in the NFL. It does. You're Jimmy Garoppolo, but not as handsome.
Jeez, here we go. Let's talk about handsome quarterbacks now. No, I think the interesting thing with like between Willis and Sam Howell, they both take sacks. I think Willis, this was like the same thing with Lamar. I think Willis, like, quote unquote, tries to be a quarterback a really long time before he starts moving around. People, I still remember that stuff about Lamar. Like, people really didn't realize how much he was trying to stick to Bobby Petrino's teaching, right? Like, hey, 1, 2, 3, balls out, 1, 2, 3, hitch, and then hitch until you scramble. And you see it now in the NFL with Howell. It's like his footwork just get out of, like, the second that someone is not right for him, like the second it's not a slant RPO, it's like, hey, now my feet get out of whack, and the accuracy can struggle that way, and et cetera, et cetera. So like, we're looking at two guys in like similar offenses. I think Liberty definitely an extreme version of RPO spread, super spread, but still like it's very similar stuff. And you look at their footwork, and Malik Willis is better. He just doesn't see stuff down the field. I mean, it's literally what it is now. Like, everything else is there. The footwork is there. Obviously, arm strength and everything is there. But like, he literally they'll run the same play like 9 times in a game, and he'll see it once. It's not good. It's like really not good. But I'm still willing to bet on it.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm obviously there. Were you talking about just quarterbacks?
Yeah, just for the purpose of this conversation, I guess we'll just keep it to quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is pocket for me. I think I overvalued like pocket management or like navigation. Like I was like a Deshaun Kaiser fan because he was like unafraid of things in the
wasn't?
pocket. Everyone. That's like draft Twitter's QB1 forever. But he was like so unafraid in the pocket. But I think I overvalued that. Especially with like a guy like Rosen, I was like, oh, look at him climb the pocket and like navigate, like get away from pressure. But if you don't have that escape plan, I don't know how it works now. I don't know how it works. I don't want that quarterback. I need a quarterback that can run.
Can you, Deontay, can you talk like maybe a little more in detail about when we're talking about the issues with blitzing and getting pressure on the quarterback, where like, and I think we've talked about this before, how like teams are being able to still rush for get a free rusher. And when you get a free rusher because you're blitzing, you're sending a simulated pressure, a creeper, whatever you want to call it, like, and you're still getting pressure. Well, the issue is the coverage shell hasn't changed.
Right.
You don't have necessarily a built-in answer because they've rushed 5 and now there's a hole there and whatever. Is that the type of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, even if it's not like the simulated pressure or creeper thing, which is obviously, while it's growing in the NFL, we still have some time, I think, before we get into a situation where we can really consider it a major piece of what people are doing. So like, I still think about like stunts and twists and stuff like that as being a big piece of it. And you see a lot of that now in the NFL too, because these interior linemen are athletic, and if they're not athletic, they're big enough to be able to pick guys and allow for these like very talented 9 technique edge rusher type guys to be able to go affect the pocket. So like really what I'm looking at from a defensive perspective is that like what kind of pressure, because there's different kinds of quality pressure, right? So when we use like Joe Burrow as an example, like you probably want late pressure because he's a guy who is able to navigate the pocket well. So you want something that's going to land in his lap, you know, as he tries to climb or escape. Same thing with like a Justin Herbert. Like we saw like a lot of that early in the season was teams really kind of trying to sell out to get after the guy, I think because of the up and down nature of his rookie season. And then you see him being able to navigate the pocket really well and then just punishing everybody who sent pressure at him. Right. We had that conversation about Matthew Stafford at different points in the year. So it kind of varies. You know, with younger quarterbacks, I think what you see a lot of is, you know, can you handle things like what Mike Zimmer does? Like when you get those like double mug looks, you don't know who's coming from where, like the Brian Flores stuff where you're overloading a certain side of the line of scrimmage. You got all these guys walked up. Now that's really where you can get a feel for who you are personality wise and processing wise as a quarterback. Like, have you prepared enough to be able to point out where the protection needs to go? And then from there, do you have enough reps in your head, both within the concept and then just generally in terms of understanding your skill set and like your chemistry that you have with your receivers for the things that you can't account for? So if you set the protection right, theoretically, but they're still able to send a guy from an angle where you have to be responsible as a quarterback for getting the ball out or escaping if the guy's unblocked and you don't feel it until late, that kind of gets back to Steven's point of like, you have to be able to do that now, especially as a young quarterback in the NFL, because otherwise, you know, we see teams like the 49ers who are playing with maybe like half of a plus DB at a time, and they're still able to just, you know, suffocate these offenses because of what they can do with these multiple looks as just like a regular 4-down, you know, base zone coverage type of team, because they can do so much with the front. Same thing with the Rams this year. Like obviously Jalen Ramsey is Jalen Ramsey, but a lot of it was kind of like piecemealing together a coverage package and pass rush, you know, because of what they have up front and what they don't have in the back end. So as a quarterback, you know, you've got to be able to handle the different layers of pressure that you're going to see in the pros. In the college level, you're going to get your creepers and things like that. But in the pros, it can literally be anything at any time. You know, teams can teach second down like third down because of the nature of the pass happiness of the league. So you really got to get those reps up. And if you don't, you see these young quarterbacks like a Baker Mayfield, you know, we brought up as an example, really kind of start drowning in not being able to have the answers that you have to deal with those types of looks.
Are we at a point where we don't necessarily want our quarterback? We don't want that on his plate. Like I know the Chargers didn't have Herbert do any protection stuff because they were like, we want you to focus on the quarterback stuff. Like that's why they signed the center,
Bensley,
to handle that. And really, like, some of the answers, like, I'd rather have a guy whose instinct against a free rusher is not to throw hot, it's to extend the play, because that's what the defense wants you to do. They want you to throw it short on 3rd and long and check it down.
This is the fucking Cliff Kingsbury problem.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
They're throwing hot off everything.
Yeah. And that's like, I posted a clip in our group chat of Willis, and someone responded like, "Oh, he missed the hot, like he was hot off the free rusher." And I was, but what happened after that? What happened after that is he escaped the pocket and threw a dime downfield for a touchdown. That's where I'm at with like the post processing stuff. Like, you'd rather see him throw hot for 5 yards than throw a touchdown. Like, that's where I think we like kind of jumped the shark with the processing stuff.
That's why I had Jake from QB1.
Well, and that, but
through the hot.
I think people, when you hear the term like overcoming coaching, I think people almost hear that like pejoratively, like trying to overcome your coach being an idiot or something. But when I hear it, that's what I think about.
Be an athlete, make a play.
Yeah, like structurally, can you throw the ball hot? Yes, and nobody's going to yell at you. You got a blitz look. You throw the ball where the coverage player was vacated. You know, it's underneath. It's quick. You're not getting hit. Who's mad at that? Because that's what you have drawn up on your whiteboard or whatever in your quarterback room. But what's going to separate you from the next guy, and obviously we're not breaking news here, this isn't rocket science, it's the ability to be able to escape and continue to do high-level quarterback things, you know, to elevate your offense. That's kind of what we're looking for, I think, in quarterbacks now. You know, and this goes back to what I was saying about the Shanahan tree, these RPO offenses, things like that. All of these offenses now are so sophisticated in understanding where these blitzes can come from and the way that these coverage shells change around them. You can have a passing answer at the first sign of pressure at any point, and you'll probably be okay. At least your numbers won't necessarily take a big hit for it, but you can only go so far doing things that way. It's hard to survive.
No, it's the Jimmy Garoppolo issue.
It's like
it really is the Jimmy
Kirk
Garoppolo
Cousins issue too. Like, his passer rating and his production is great every year. His EPA is great every year, but they're 7-9. They're 7-10 because of him.
Exactly.
Because he threw the hot every time.
Yeah.
And
I think Cousins is a little more aggressive than you give him credit for.
I haven't watched him in like 3 years. My Cousins takes are like 2017 Cousins still.
So no, I think I'm kind of on that same. And then the nice thing is, like, you know, with the way that quarterback contracts work, and like you get a guy who's on that rookie deal, and you can build a team around him, and build an offense schematically and with surrounding talent around him. And of course, when it hits on both sides, like Burrow, especially like Justin Herbert, then you're cooking. But you don't need it to hit like.
Right.
Burrow
for
or
that
Herbert.
First year, or the first contract.
For the first contract, you'd love it, right? I mean, the Chargers and the Bengals are in love right now, but like they don't need to. Question for you about Herbert. I don't think we've had you on. I don't remember last time we talked to you about your favorite quarterback, Justin Herbert.
I think it was week 1, and I said he was the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, you're right.
And I have not come off that since then. Like,
that's it. He's like, if we're talking about like 5 years, like the next 5 years,
I want him.
I'm with him on that.
Like, I think people think it's a bit when I say he's the best quarterback.
It's not a bit.
It's honestly the closest to quarterback perfection I've ever seen on film. Like, he does not make mistakes, and it's uncanny. My issue with him is he's a little too by the book, a little too robotic.
It's crazy how robotic it is. But it doesn't matter.
Boom.
Yeah,
and that's like my one issue, and it's not even like a complaint. So
do we think that, like, you know, one of the issues with this statement, like right now, is the up and down season that Mahomes had, right? Because it's still Patrick Mahomes. Like, at the end of the day, it's still Patrick Mahomes. He's been to 4 straight AFC Championship games and Super Bowl winner, MVP, whatever.
Right.
Like, are we gonna give, like, what do we think of Mahomes going forward? Like, are we thinking, okay, don't worry, because, you know, from, you know, 17, 18, or 18, 19, 20, we saw this unbelievable quarterback. And even 2021, they go to the AFC Championship game, even though, you know, we've talked about this on the podcast a lot. But like, are we okay with saying Mahomes will get back to it? I don't think he was. I'm not saying he was bad. And I'm not saying he was a bad quarterback. I just think it was lower than like what we think of Mahomes.
I thought we started to see signs of that in the second half, like once they adjusted the last month or so. I don't know what happened in the second half of that Bengals game.
I don't think anyone does. I don't think they
that was like freshman year at Texas Tech bad.
Yeah.
Right.
But like if someone asks me, and I'm not talking to people that I know and I'm friendly with, I'm going to say Mahomes is the better quarterback between the two.
Right.
And
Well, this podcast isn't going out anywhere. So.
Oh, okay. Good.
You're good.
Cam Newton's actually the best quarterback. But I think with Mahomes, like the Mahomes-Herbert debate, I think with Mahomes, it's a track record thing now. Not that he's been around for a long time, but 2021, who was the best quarterback in the NFL, I don't even think it's a debate who the best quarterback was last year for that season.
Justin Herbert, period.
To be honest.
I'm with you.
And one thing I want to say, because I don't think it gets enough attention in the media, is like Justin Herbert is not a big arm. Like that's not what his game is. Like him being a big arm quarterback, that's probably like the third best thing about his game.
That's probably the one thing that pisses me off most is that I don't see enough of the big arm stuff.
This is the issue that we've had with the offense for parts of the season was that he didn't show off the arm and create these explosive plays, and there was a dip in form from like the offense as a whole, which really cost them like in the middle of the season, maybe like the first, let's say like week, I don't know what it was, 4 to 8 or whatever, where honestly, if they win one more game, the offense does one more good thing in any one of those games, they're in the playoffs, right? And honestly, if they get into the playoffs,
or if they could stop the run, can they stop one run?
Well, that's a whole other story. Yeah. Let's stick on the Chargers for a bit here. Where are you at with them in the first round, and specifically like Jordan Davis? Like, is that just the absolute perfect fit for what they lacked last year and what he can bring to them?
I mean, I think it makes perfect sense. I realize I feel like that's the most common pairing with in mock drafts. But I'm wondering if you can't get those guys later. That's my thing is positional value. Do you necessarily want to take
the UConn kid? Just get the UConn kid in the third round, man.
Exactly.
Like you want Jordan Davis on your team. But do you want to draft him in the first round? That's my thing. He's a good football player. Just like Justin Tucker's a good football player. I would not draft him.
Right.
I wouldn't draft him.
Right.
That's where I stand on it. But I do think they need to just go wholesale on defense and figure it, because you have a golden ticket with Herbert. It doesn't matter like their offense schematically was not great this year. Their receiver, they lacked deep speed, or it didn't mesh well with what they had in Herbert. I thought it could have been more expansive. They didn't have field stretching speed. Their offensive line, the right side, was terrible. Storm Norton played too much football. He played too many snaps. And it didn't matter. They were still like top 5 in EPA. So I think you just need to go wholesale on defense. I know Staley is like, he should be the guy that's like filling in those gaps with his X's and O's. But that just doesn't work in the NFL. You need dudes on defense. I think that's where you need dudes. On offense, you just need one guy. And just enough around him. On defense, you just need like 8 studs. And they have what, 1, 2?
They have 2.
Yeah, 2.
And their studs are.
Oh yeah, they have 2.5.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he's a great cover 6 corner.
Their studs are legit studs, but to your point, I just think that they are in a position where they have to ask their 2 best dudes to cover for way too many other deficiencies. Like, I think I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm thinking of defense similarly to how I think of offensive line, which is just like, can you get to a position where you just don't have major holes? That's good enough more times than not.
You have to be able to hide like 2 people.
Right, exactly.
Like even the 2020 Rams, those linebackers, they were able to hide them because
everybody
around
else
them was good.
Right. So like that's kind of where I'm at with that. And because of that, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense from a draft capital perspective to say that we're walking out of here with a nose as our crown
Here's my
jewel.
thing though. If you would have played third downs and had a pass rush,
then yes, now we're having a different conversation.
Completely different conversation.
Well, which is why I'm like, if you're going to draft a guy, I'd probably say Wyatt, because I think you can just do a little bit more with Wyatt right now than you can with Davis. And you and I have talked about this. I think that with Davis, he'll get in the league, and maybe this is just me projecting some best case scenario type of stuff onto him, but I do think that being in the NFL, the first order of business probably would be to cut his weight a little bit and then try to get his conditioning right. And we saw, like, by the national championship game, he definitely played more in the rematch with Alabama than he did the first time around, and was more productive over the length of those snaps than he was the first time around. So I do think that there's maybe a little bit of an awakening in terms of not like he was a soft player or wasn't a hard worker, but you could definitely see a difference in motor. But to me, again, are you trying to leave this draft knowing that you have what we believe to be a top 3 quarterback, basically no matter how you feel about it, whether you're considering just 2021 or the stretch of his career versus the field? that does buy you some time. But on the back end, you know that having this blue chip type of quarterback means that the second that this rookie deal is up, the whole context of this franchise changes. Right. So you probably want to address this offseason in a way where you can just plug as many of those defensive holes as possible. You can probably find cheap vets or guys later in the draft up along the front to help you out. And then it's just like maybe one or two more legitimate playmaking, difference-making type guys at the linebacker or defensive back position. Just I guess you're trying to intimate what you have with the Rams, with Staley.
Right.
Ultimately, is kind of what you want, right? You would like Derwin James to be a Mario Mushroom version of John Johnson.
Well, this is what
and that's kind of what he is, and just building out around that.
We talked about it last week with their interior and comparing the two, where it was like, the most important player on the interior of the Rams, let's say 2020, was obviously Aaron Donald.
Right.
As much as we thought that Sebastian Joseph gave them really good minutes, he did. Mm-hmm. But like, you can still build it as much as you're going to play with a nose, head up, and play too high. Like, you still want to build it around having a 4-eye or a 3-tech, some guy over the guard.
Because what was their answer, right? If we don't have Joseph Day, okay, we'll just play Gaines and A'Shawn Robinson.
And they were fine.
Yeah, we'll still have a legitimate run defense that way,
And I'm kind of like guilty of what I advocated for with the quarterbacks, like with Davis. Like you said, he didn't play on third down, but that doesn't mean he can't play on third down. And and
I don't think the pass rush was great when he got pass.
Right,
it's not great, but yeah.
But and with him being on that team specifically, not playing on third down isn't necessarily a red flag for me because he's playing with the Monstars.
Like, we were talking about how they're like, I don't know if it was specifically Georgia and Alabama are really coming in with that like the rabbit stuff, where it's like, hey, we're coming in on third down with
legitimate speed. Like 10 of the 11 players probably run like sub 4.6 40s. Yeah,
crazy.
It's ridiculous.
So I get that for sure when you take him off the field because he's not that type of player. No, the funny thing about Davis is that he's actually like he is a power player, but he's not like a pocket collapse. He's so quick for his size, which is the craziest thing about him for me. So you could still work with a player like that and he'll fit in doing what kind of Joseph Day did, but just in a quicker version of him.
Right.
He's really good and still get the size there. So I think that my biggest problem is like with the Chargers, they're going to go defense at like 17. It's like, okay, but you're going to overdraft Wyatt then? Because I'm not sure I see it
same
with Wyatt
problem, right? It's just same problem, different player.
Exactly.
Trade down. I think they're a team that should trade down.
I think that's probably a viable option for them, honestly. So probably to trade down, stockpile, and again, like you just want as many bites as at the apple now that you have
if
the
you trade down to 24 and take Jordan Davis there, I'm not complaining.
I probably don't hate that. And for what else you're going to get in trading down, now it's not just, hey, we got Jordan Davis. It's through this transaction, we acquire Jordan Davis plus X, Y, and Z, right? And now you might be in a better position. So I don't hate that idea either.
As long as they go into week one not playing Jerry Tillery on early downs, I'll be fine. Get him off the field.
Please.
The worst run defender I've ever seen in my life.
They need to get better, like right down the spine.
Yes.
Right down the spine.
Yeah.
I think the best way to do that is to trade back, accumulate picks, and just spend a bunch of picks on defense.
Yeah.
I'm 100% in agreement.
We fixed the Chargers.
Diante, do you know who the lead and presenting sponsor of the Too High podcast is?
I have a guess, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Well, it's PFF, Pro Football Focus. Right now on PFF.com, you can get 25% off any PFF subscription if you use the promo code, what's that? Too High, TWOHIGH. What can you get with a PFF subscription? Well, you get all of PFF's locked article content that includes most of the stuff we write. You wrote a very good piece on blitzing protections.
Yes.
How do defenses blitz protections?
Yes.
I wrote a piece on the RPO revolution. So you get that. You get the NFL draft guide. You get the completely unlocked mock draft simulator, which is obviously amazing. 2022 free agency rankings, draft, grades and data and all that stuff from the 2021 season and much more. I think we're even doing USFL grades. Nice. So if you want to know about your New Orleans Breakers and your New Jersey Generals,
I mean, it's off season. It's all season time too. So all of the preview work that we're going to do both at the college and pro level, that'll also be available behind the paywall. So plenty to get to.
The Too High podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home, planning to start a family, wondering how to make your money grow, Western and Sterling's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com. And finally, the Too High podcast is sponsored by Manscaped. Can I get a round of applause, everyone? Anybody? Round of applause? Anyone? No? Today, I'm excited to announce Manscaped launched their Ultra Premium, which is a registered trademark, collection. Believe it or not, it's for you, for your not-so-private parts. I'm talking about a leveled up hygiene routine with your favorite manly scent. What's your favorite manly scent? Mine is my my balls.
All right.
This is an all-in-one skin and hair care kit for the everyday man and covers you from head to toe, literally. Manscaped is trusted below the waist. Now trust them with the rest. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with promo code PFF. I'll tell you what my actual favorite smell is.
All right.
My favorite manly smell. This is gross. I get it. But like there are times when I do like the smell of my own farts.
That's a take. That's a take.
You fart in the shower and with the steam going.
So you just like waft in?
I just waft.
Okay,
I waft in this. It's a good smell in my opinion. So that is my favorite manly smell. All right, I'd recommend using the products in this order. Hop in the shower, take a quick fart, and scrub-a-dub that body with the Manscaped body wash. Lather your hair up with a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner to keep your noggin toggin. Dry off and spray on the hydrating body moisturizer to reinvigorate dry skin. Put on the Manscaped deodorant for obvious reasons. Pop that Manscaped lip balm on. No one is out here kissing chapped up lips. They got everything. It's the full kit and caboodle here. Getting dressed after is optional. Hello. Wear one great scent all day long. Get 20% off and free shipping with promo code PFF at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with promo code PFF at manscaped.com. The power of attraction is now in a bottle thanks to Manscaped. Let's fix the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, man.
So where do you actually? Yeah, that's actually a good conversation for you as an observer. Where do you start? Is it quarterback or is it higher than that? Is it somewhere?
Dude,
you start at the owner.
Yeah, I saw a tweet that was like, I don't know. I keep getting these tweets in my timeline of like, based on your likes, blah blah blah. Like, here's a tweet for you, and they're always the same. It's these like fan accounts, but this one that I saw was like, Darnold making a play, whatever, one of his like 4 plays that he makes a year, and it was like the caption was like someone told me Sam Darnold wasn't a good quarterback, and it's like, yeah, like a lot of people are saying that and they're right about it.
That was just
was it Matt Rule?
There was a Twitter account, the Reven Stewies.
No, I think it starts at the top. I think there's been a common denominator or common theme with all the bad moves they've made over the last 3 years, and it's a lack of patience. I think David Tepper is a not problematic Daniel Snyder, basically. He's like, he wants a winner right now. He took over the team when they were 6-2. They like lost the rest of their games. They fired.
Can't wait till some allegations come out and we clip that.
I know. I mean, I wrote a glowing piece about Deshaun Watson like 4 months before that story broke. So I've already in that lane. But yeah, I think it starts with the owner, and even the Matt Rule hire. Like, they interviewed Matt Rule and basically offered him a 7-year contract on the spot. They were supposed to interview Josh McDaniels after, and they ended up canceling the interview, which makes no sense to me. Like, interview all of the candidates, especially when you're hiring a guy from Baylor. No offense to Baylor, another non-problematic school. But it starts with the owner, and I don't care what happens. I've been on like 5 pods, and they all ask me about the Panthers, and I'm just like, I don't care, man. It's like this year, I don't care about them. I'm just not going to pay attention. Hopefully they start over next offseason, and I'll get back into it. If they draft Malik Willis, I'm back in.
Right.
And I kind of don't want them to, because I don't want to be attached to them next year, but I don't know where to start. Like, the quarterback, if quarterback is your 3rd biggest issue, and I think it is, because I think owner and head coach are bigger issues, you're fucked in the NFL. If that's your 3rd, because for most teams, that's your biggest issue, and they have to solve those 2 things. And one of the things you can't solve because he owns the team.
Right. Right.
Well, but then you if you just randomly hit on a quarterback, then you've solved them by accident.
That's true, but
which is always nice.
I think they'll waste whatever. If they land on a quarterback that's good, like let's say they draft Malik Willis and he turns out to be everything I think he can be, they'll waste him.
Well, I mean, and then there's just like the accumulating cost of every year having to be in the quarterback market the way that they have been. Like it's been every single year, and I think that, ultimately what we're walking away from, the takeaway to me when we're talking about the Panthers is that bringing in retread quarterbacks can be just as destructive as bringing in retread head coaches, in terms of what that kind of takes away from, in terms of building an organization and, having a head coach that also just does not seem that wants it both ways in a way. Like he does not necessarily want to be the most hands-on offensive guy, but will fire his offensive coordinator mid-season for not doing what the head coach wants to be done, right? So where does that really leave you as a franchise if you're turning over quarterbacks every offseason? You are now losing continuity in your offense by letting go of guys, and we still don't really have a clear idea of how they even plan to attack some of these holes that they have. Because even if they do draft Willis, you're still dealing with
the offensive line is horrible.
Second worst offensive line behind the Dolphins.
Line is better than the Carolina Panthers offensive line.
So we're probably right back having the same conversation if you don't address it beyond that. And to Steven's point, this thing is probably much closer to truly cratering all the way than you are to drafting a guy and all of a sudden papering over all of the issues that you have with the rest of the roster. I
lost total faith when they traded for Sam Darnold and then instantly gave him the 5th-year option.
Unbelievable.
He's getting $18.5 million this year guaranteed, and there was no reason to give him that money.
But you didn't see the tweet, though.
Never been an all-pro, not a Pro Bowler.
Good.
And if you watch his film, like I don't know how you watch his film and don't come away thinking this guy is terrible.
Particularly his New York film, where you can make the argument that he kind of got worse year over year.
Like it's really bad.
I would argue that Adam Gase was the best thing to happen to him because it gave people hope that you could fix him.
Yes.
Honestly, like I think we need to give Adam Gase a second go of it. Give him like a real quarterback. Maybe like the results were not this bad in Miami. They were not this bad when he was the OC in Chicago. He got like one of Cutler's best years. He got one of Tannehill's best years. Obviously, Peyton was doing his own thing, but Peyton was good under him. Like Sam Darnold was the one where he built his reputation as the worst coach ever. Before that, he was like known as a smart OC.
Okay, so my Gase thing is,
by the way, Adam Gase is terrible. That offense was terrible.
So my thing with Gase is like I'm like kind of serious about this. Gase has that eye thing where I think he has like he has an issue with his eyes, and I think he's definitely self-conscious. This is where
is this going to be an ableist take?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
No, I truly believe we bring him down a peg because we make fun of him because of this. We make fun of his image. I truly believe that we well, now if you obviously like if you had consistent success and blah 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 and you were always good, then we don't talk about it. But the second like it becomes an issue and like everyone's like, oh, look at him, they Photoshop in the waffle, like he's trying to track
there's a taco,
yeah, it's like then I don't know, I just feel like there's a bit of a problematic thing with that.
Beyond that, if you're looking at on the field, I think that one of the things that really hurts him most is the fact that the best quarterback you're tied to is Peyton Manning, who we know runs Peyton Manning's offense, right? So you just don't get to draw any credit from that. And then every other quarterback that he's had basically were like bad quarterbacks, or people that we have very poor, perceptions of. So even if they were middling to above average, he still, again, gets to claim no credit for that because you're also fighting the reputation of the quarterbacks as well. And then the fact that you've bounced around from spot to spot doesn't help either. So I don't think that he is a bad coach. I don't think he's a head coach, but I don't think that he's a bad coach either. But to your point about Darnold, right, like you look at, I do think, I agree with you that he was probably the best thing to happen to him, especially early in his career, for making people think that there was something workable there. I do want to pivot for a second, though. I know that we're kind of low on time, and I'm sure you've got other things that you've got to get to.
He has nothing to do. He literally has nothing to do.
Specific to Malik Willis, which of the new head coaches do you think will be looking at Willis and be maybe the most excited about fitting him in?
That's a good question. I I'm like blanking on the new coaches.
I
now.
want to say my first thing was Dable.
Oh yeah,
Giants.
Dable.
I could see
obviously
Dable.
the Dan
I
Jones
think-
thing got to play out, but yeah.
I mean, I think Doug Peterson, but obviously as a quarterback,
Yeah.
Right.
that's like the type of offense I would envision. Like what the Colts are running for Carson Wentz last year is basically what I think the first year of Willis should look like if you draft him and play him.
Mm-hmm.
So that type of a coach who is going to run RPOs,
Yeah.
and who is going to commit to the quarterback run game.
Yeah.
If you're not committing to the quarterback run game, like even like Nagy, like obviously he ran RPOs, but I don't think there was a commitment to using Justin Fields as a runner, which I don't think Justin Fields needs to be like throughout his career, but during his rookie year, you should be using his legs. I don't understand why you weren't.
I think, for me, Dable was obviously the first one to come to mind, so same as you guys. And then I just don't know enough about who Nathaniel Hackett's actually going to be as
this
a head
is the
coach.
big question, man.
But
This is
if
such a
I'm
question.
Hackett and I'm looking at the surrounding cast that I have, I would think that Willis would probably be an ideal guy to drop into that.
That's a good
because if
call.
nothing else, he can be athletic enough to go extend plays, and you know that you have just this great, collection of young wide receivers. I like what they have in their backfield. They have a good enough offensive line to where you can probably drop a guy like Willis in there, and for all the things that he might not be the best at in terms of seeing things down the field, or generating explosive plays within the structure of the play, like I think that you're okay with what else you have around him, and you can drop him in and say, whatever problems we have within this offense, you do what Malik Willis does to get us out of trouble. And more times than not, I think they'll probably be okay.
Honestly, one answer might be, and I totally forgot about this, and not because it's like the offensive fit, but what I think the coach can do with him.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel.
I don't hate that either.
Well, but I think it looks like the 2 games that we saw of Trey Lance, or
Right,
2.5
right,
games of Trey Lance.
exactly.
Not like Garoppolo.
Mm-hmm.
Except for this guy can actually throw the ball and get it to where he's trying to get it. And he doesn't just throw 100 miles per hour every time he throws
All
the
right.
ball.
This was the too high pot. No, I actually want to say something about the Hackett thing, because I think it's a good point. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff that they do that Hackett was doing. And again, we don't know, because I don't know. I have to look it up, but I don't think Hackett is he's not a LaFleur, Shanny, McVay guy. Now, he was
Right.
just with them in the
Right.
same way that like Zach
Zach
Taylor was with
Sean McVay.
But like I don't
Yeah.
know, so we don't know. But if we're talking about the Packers offense, there's a lot of good stuff that you can just plant Willis in, and you're really just you're changing all the quick game stuff and the kind of cool quick game stuff they do with Rodgers for quarterback run stuff. That's the big thing, and you're still trying to hit the big plays down the field, all play action. You're still throwing the bubbles and stuff,
and
doing all that stuff. You're just kind of putting some Jalen Hurts stuff in there.
So then, I guess ultimately it's like, are we projecting that the ways that LaFleur was able to adjust the Shanahan offense to fit what he believes and what fit Aaron Rodgers, do we believe that Hackett is walking in with the same kind of capabilities?
It's hard, man.
Or
we
is he just
want to
walking in
believe
with-
that every coach that comes in, every OC that comes in is going to do that, and we've seen
time
tons of
after time it
examples
doesn't
that
happen.
And how much of that was Rodgers himself?
Right. Being
Well,
able
this
to
is a whole
influence
I think the-
I
conversation.
want X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
I think the RPO stuff was Rodgers. I think he wanted to be in control, whether he handed the ball off or threw it just to Devontae. But I think Nathaniel Hackett, if he's running that offense, I think the Packers offense makes a lot of sense for Malik Willis. Like, obviously the quick game stuff you're not going to run, but you can replace that with RPOs.
Yeah, you
The Dolphins just built a whole offense out of it.
Right.
So I think Hackett would be, he that might be the best answer is the Broncos for Willis.
Yeah.
Steve Ruiz. See you tonight at the bar, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Tell the people where they can find you.
Outkick. No, I make that joke all the time.
Every time.
The Ringer, of course, and on Twitter at the Steven Ruiz. That's Steven with a V. The proper way to spell it, by the way. No P.
Do you like it when I call you Steve, or do you prefer Steven?
Oh yeah. What's your take on
I
Steve? as a
prefer
nickname?
Steven, but I'm fine with Steve. I've come around to it over the last couple of years. When I was younger, I was a no Steve policy.
Right, because that's like an old. It ages you, I think.
Does it?
Yeah.
I guess it does.
I think Steve makes you older. I think that's like once you go to Steve, you're like an old man now.
And I am an old man now.
Yeah.
I won't be at the bar tonight. I'll be at my hotel playing VR football and eating my leftover Panera sandwich from yesterday.
All right. That was the Too High Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow. See you guys.